YMB Movie Talk from your movie blogger. My name is Simon Mansell, and I'm so happy that you've decided to join me today on my newest episode of the YMB Movie Talk Podcast. It's been a couple of days, guys, but I said I would do a podcast within the next week since I did my last podcast. I did try and do I tried to live stream a podcast on Monday. But it didn't work. For some reason, YouTube just wouldn't let me live stream. Something to do with my camera or something. I don't know what was happening with that. And then I tried to do it again, but then my laptop completely cut off on when was it? I think it was yesterday. Or Tuesday. I might have tried to do that. That didn't work either. So as you can imagine, it was kind of stressful, and it was a bit of a nightmare. But it's okay because we are back now doing the podcast the way we've been doing it, just normal recording, and I'll post it up for you when it's done. We've got a couple of great topics to talk about today, guys. This podcast will be my first kind of full movie review. I've just come back from the cinemas. Just went out today. Went out with one of my oldest friends, which was a great time that I haven't seen for years. Knew him since primary school. It's been a great day. I thought I'd come back and do a little review on my podcast, which I thought you'd all enjoy. Just to note as well, I still feel a little bit ill. I don't feel as bad, but I'm still feeling a little bit bunged up. So again, if you hear me sipping on water, because obviously in the podcast you have to talk a lot, so it kind of dries your throat out. So if you hear me sipping, if you hear me doing that, then that's the reason why. The film that I wanted to talk about, guys, the first of the four main topics that we wanted to talk about today, and that is talking about the new Fast and Furious film, Hobbs and Shaw. Now, if you remember on my last podcast, I did an in-depth review talking about the Fast and Furious series as a whole, going through my opinions on each of the films, kind of where my opinions stood on them, which ones I thought was, the best, which ones I thought didn't really do it for me. I have very mixed feelings on the franchise, but overall it's a series that I do enjoy. The first film, if you look at the first film compared to this film, the series has changed so much, and I think it's changed due to kind of trends in cinema as time has gone on because of the franchise going for so long, which is understandable, and I think they've definitely done good by doing that because they've been able to keep the franchise fresh, where I think all the series have kind of fell by that because they haven't kept up to date with what people want nowadays. That being said, come out of Hobbs and Shaw today. Been hearing all the reviews, very kind of mixed. Most people like it, but some people not really feeling it. Some of the people who've worked on Fast and Furious in the past don't really have a very high opinion on it. Mainly Tyrese Gibson, and I'm almost guaranteed Vin Diesel doesn't have a very high opinion of it either, judging by his history with The Rock. But that being said, I'm not here to talk about anyone else's opinions. I'm here to talk about my opinions on Fast and Furious. Hobbs and Shaw. What do I think about it? It's exactly what I was expecting, in a good way, but then also kind of in a bad way as well. I was expecting all the good aspects of the Fast and Furious films mixed with all the bad aspects, and I'll go into those more into detail as the show goes on. But definitely, first impressions are I definitely had a good time. I enjoyed it. It's dumb. Definitely. Probably the dumbest of the film so far. A lot of kind of cheesy one-liners, a lot of over-the-top action, unrealistic physics. The film was kind of crazy, but it kind of worked. It didn't really feel like a Fast and Furious film. And that's what I've been hearing a lot of people say that about Hobbs and Shaw. It doesn't really feel like it's a Fast and Furious film. And I kind of feel putting the Fast and Furious name before Hobbs and Shaw kind of almost holds it back a little bit, because people have certain expectations. The film kind of just felt a little bit random in some parts. Certain cameos certain little sequences that happened that felt kind of weird and unwarranted and a little bit unnecessary. Some things didn't really work, some things did work. Definitely, I think the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the story. Now, the story revolves around the characters of Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw, that's a footballer. The characters revolve around Luke Hobbs and Deckard Shaw. They was introduced in like Fast 5 and Fast 6 respectively. Obviously played by Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, two of my favourite characters from the Fast and Furious series. Definitely have breathed new life into the series over the past, say, like 3 or 4 films. And obviously now they've got their own spin-off. The best aspect of this film definitely is their chemistry. I like seeing these two actors together. They have great comedic banter with each other, very good chemistry. You believe it when they are bickering with each other, and you believe them in the action scenes. They are very physical, and like I said in my other reviews for the Fast and Furious films, it's very clear to see how these characters have changed. This version of Luke Hobbs is not the same that we got in Fast and Furious 5. They've definitely, like, in a way, humanised him, where in Fast 5, when he was first introduced, he was just a straight, no-nonsense, vicious, violent, kind of cop, really. That's kind of the special agent. That's kind of what he was. Whereas the series have kind of gone on, his character has changed considerably during that time. He's now more of he's still a very aggressive, presence on screen. He's very a very physical presence. He brings what you'd expect him to bring, but he's also a lot more humane in a way. He's got a lot more comedic elements to his character, same as Jason Statham as well, and they do work very well together. But like I said earlier, doesn't really feel like a Fast and Furious film, and it's mainly due to the plot of the film. Coming back again to the story, the film follows Hobbs and Shaw as they get called up to be a part of this kind of mission sent by the CIA to bring down this secret organisation that delves into like scientific robotic human tech thing, like combining humans and robotics together to kind of make one big kind of superhuman in a way, and is Idris Elba's character. And then obviously there's a whole kind of side plot with the sister, which involves Shaw's sister, with Idris Elba going after her to try and get this what do they call it, the snowflake, some kind of device that's going to end the world and end humanity as we know it. So the story is completely ridiculous. It feels more like a Marvel film in a way. It doesn't really feel like a Fast and Furious film, and I feel like that's kind of what they was going for. It feels a lot more like a kind of MCU superhero film. It doesn't really feel like a kind of a gritty action film, which I think a lot of people kind of wanted. It doesn't feel like that whatsoever. But definitely it feels like a completely over the top story, which it is. But I think it was played off quite well. They know how ridiculous it is. They definitely know how ridiculous it is. The comedy in this film works really well, to be fair. Chris Morgan's back again writing the script, co-written by Drew Pearce, who's a screenwriter I'm a big fan of. So the screenwriting's there. It's directed by David Leitch, who co-directed John Wick. He directed Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, that action film with Charlize Theron. So he has got some very big action directing credits. So he's bringing that over to the Fast and Furious films. I was interested to see what he would do, especially with the action scenes and the choreography. And that's definitely the best part. One of the best parts of the film is the action. They combine a lot of... I was surprised how much practical effects was in this film. definitely shocked me. I wasn't expecting as many practical stunts as there was in this film. I was expecting a heavily CGI, over the top bloated action film, and it kind of wasn't that. The action, even though they kind of say it's world ending, felt very, very small scale and personal. It felt very personal with these characters, where unlike something in, say, Fate of the Furious, with the cars, where all the cars are like raining down, it felt like such a big kind of, they tried to go too big with it really, and kind of missed the whole point of these characters, and kind of forgot about the characters in the process. Where this kind of dials it back and focuses more on the characters in these action scenes. The visuals are what they are. It's, if you come into this film to watch a very visually pleasing film, something like a Blade Runner 2049, you're not going to get a film that looks like that. It definitely goes for that kind of grey, dull, drained out colour palette. You know, it definitely goes for that kind of visual style. The cinematography, some of it is quite impressive. Some of it is just very bog standard, over the shoulder. You know, especially in conversations, and I think that's where David Leitch kind of shows his inexperience as a filmmaker, with his kind of, not, I wouldn't say inability, but definitely his lack of style when it comes to just shooting dialogue scenes. He hasn't got that finesse or that flair. That's to say someone like an Edgar Wright, who I'd love to see tackle a Fast and Furious film. I think with his style, he could definitely bring such a unique vision to this series, and I wish they'd go for someone like that. But 100%, the action scenes are great. Yeah, like I said, the comedy is good in the film. It's a funny film. I laughed a lot during the entire runtime. There's some hilarious bits, mostly focused around The Rock and Jason Statham. Their banter, their chemistry is fantastic. But that's kind of where it ends for me, as far as this film. It definitely isn't perfect and it has problems, but I think they're problems that a lot of people would expect. The pacing in this film is really bad. It feels like it goes on forever. It was trying to fit too much in to this, like, the film was like nearly 2 hours 15 minutes, and it definitely felt like 2 hours and 15 minutes, whereas something, when I watched, say, like a film like Endgame, which was, nearly an hour more than this, it didn't feel like that whatsoever. It didn't drag, it didn't feel like the film was that long, where this 100% definitely felt its runtime and held it back from being a very fast-paced film. Some scenes drag out really bad. Some of the comedy scenes, they start off very funny and then they kind of just go backwards and they kind of fall flat, because they just go on forever. Some of the action scenes go on for a bit too long. Some story threads go on too long. Again, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but there are certain story threads and certain appearances from, small cameos, which I feel like could have been cut out altogether and the film would have been a lot better. This film should have been between an hour and a half and, say, an hour and 45. I think that would have been a good runtime for a film like this. It's completely over bloated, and I think that's the main problem, is the editing and the pacing of the film. You will find yourself getting kind of bored. I think from the start of the film is great, where it shows the contrast between the two, and when they meet up and they interact for the first few times and they're bickering and when they're trying to find Shaw's sister, that's all great. But then it kind of drags on when we get the scenes that you've seen in the trailer. With it's nearer the end of the film where they go to Samoa. It kind of just feels really tacked on and forced. It doesn't feel natural. The whole setup was out of nowhere. They kind of introduced a backstory with Hobbs and his family. He's had family issues. They introduced that very slightly at the start of the film in like one scene and like one sentence. That was out of the blue and weird. It kind of felt really kind of out of nowhere. The focus on the I think they tried to keep like the family dynamic of the series in there. They kind of tried to keep those themes of family and looking after family and not forgetting kind of where you've come from. That's where I think that's what they was trying to go for, but they overplayed it far too much. So it was just one of those things. For me, didn't work. The film goes on forever, and it definitely needed to be edited down, and things were definitely meant to be cut. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil those scenes that I would have cut. If I was going through this film and I was editing this film, there's about 10 scenes from this film that I would have cut to at least save half an hour, which I felt would have made the film a lot more snappy, a lot more quicker. It would go by a lot faster and keep your interest more. But definitely, if you're going into this film expecting a Fast and Furious film, I think you're going to be a bit disappointed. If you're going into this film expecting a over-the-top, overblown action film, then that's what you're going to get, which is what I thought we was going to get anyway, so I kind of expected it. The film is, for me, not one of... I feel 2019's been a very disappointing year for film anyway. This definitely is in that mid-range. I'd kind of put it alongside maybe something like a Captain Marvel, a film that had a lot good going for it, but was kind of held down by the pacing and the lack of style. But I would definitely put this above Captain Marvel because of the charisma from the actors, which I feel like Captain Marvel just had zero charisma and zero style, where this film does have that, especially in the action scenes. So I would definitely say, if you want to go and watch this film, if it looks like it appeals to you, if you're a fan of the latter kind of Fast and Furious films like Fate of the Furious and say Furious, if you're a fan of say Fast and Furious 6 up until Fate of the Furious, then I think you will enjoy this. But if you're a fan of more personal stories, if you're a fan of more well-crafted cinema, then this film is not going to be for you at all. If I was giving it a rating, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. I wouldn't go any higher than that. I wouldn't say to 7. I wouldn't say to 5. It's not good enough to be a 7, but it's not like average enough to be a 5. It's got enough in there, definitely to keep your interest and keep you entertained. The film is entertaining, but it definitely drags on for too long. Also, the film has some really bad continuity issues that I feel like I have to talk about, especially in that ending scene on the Samoan Islands. Again, this isn't a spoiler, you've seen it in the trailer, but as they're fighting, literally it starts off at like night time, then they start fighting and it's broad daylight, then they stop fighting and it's night time again. That was really jarring for me, and I was thinking, is this trying to represent like passage of time? But there's a little MacGuffin in the film which clearly shows you that there's only been like half an hour passed in this film. There's only been like in the film's world, it's only been like half an hour. So that was really jarring for me and really took me out of the film. That was really weird and strange and bizarre. I couldn't help but notice that, and it did take me out of the ending of the film. That end battle scene, it definitely took me out of it 100%. Because I noticed it, and it's so obvious as well. Like, I was watching it and the scene starts off, it's got a lot of build up and you're excited and you can't wait for it, and then the action starts and it's all really like dimly lit. You'd think maybe the fire would give some interesting lighting in there, but literally as they start fighting, the fire is gone. It's just, and literally in the space of, in the film's world, in the space in about 2 minutes, the film goes from pitch black to like evening, sunset really, like sunrise, to like bright morning, and then back to like the evening overcast weather, and it starts raining. It's completely bizarre. The continuity in this film if it's completely crazy and over the top. It's really distracting. So definitely, if you're watching that ending scene, if you can switch your brain off, please do, because now I've mentioned it to you, and if you're going to watch it, you definitely will 100% recognise that now, and it might ruin the film for you. So I do apologise. I'm very sorry that I might have ruined Hobbs and Shaw's last ending scene for you, but no, I'm obviously I would definitely I'd see it right now. There's not really much else in the cinemas that I'd watch. Unless you want to go and re-watch a film like Toy Story 4 or Spider-Man. Then at the moment there's really nothing out that really catches my eye personally. So I definitely would go and watch it. It's probably the best thing out in cinemas at this moment in time that's like new. Up until, I don't even know, probably Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which comes out next week. Over here in England. I think it's already come out in America, but in England obviously it hasn't come out yet, so I'm excited to go and see that next week. Expect a review for that. But definitely, yeah, I'd go and see it. I'd definitely give it a chance. You might enjoy it. It all depends on what you're expecting. But yeah, guys, leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think of just the Fast and Furious films in general? What do you think? What if you've seen the film? What are your opinions on it? Try not to spoil it for everyone else, but what are your opinions on it? If you've not seen the film, what are you expecting? Just leave your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll have a little discussion about it. But the next topic today, guys, away from the Fast and Furious films, which I've talked about seemingly quite a bit, is talking about a little bit of news that I was talking about on my podcast, on my last podcast, and that is talking about Venom 2. They announced a list of directors, potential directors. There was like Travis Knight, who directed Kubo and the Two Strings, and Bumblebee. There was Rupert Wyatt, most known for directing Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which I'm a huge fan of. And also there was Andy Serkis, most known for his roles as Gollum and King Kong and Caesar, and most known for his motion capture work, but he's a very talented actor as well. Don't let his work distract you from the fact he's definitely a huge talent. And he's now a director. He's directed like 2 films. He directed Breathe, and he's directed Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle. Obviously, Mowgli was a good film. I enjoyed Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle. It wasn't as good as Disney's Jungle Book remake, but I definitely think it went for something different, and I think it worked for that different style. I definitely enjoyed it. I found, enjoyment in Mowgli, but I think definitely the worst part of the film was the directing in a way. The actual directing of the actors and things like that didn't. Some of it didn't work for me, and the pacing of the film, the way the film was kind of paced, was kind of choppy and needed sorting out. But definitely, Andy Serkis is a huge talent right now in directing. He's definitely got a big future if he carries on his current trajectory, and we did talk about this on the podcast before. I wanted Travis Knight. He was my pick. He was my fantasy pick for Venom 2. I feel like he could have brought something very unique and very different to what Venom compared to what Ruben Fleischer brought in the first one. I felt like he definitely could have brought something unique and definitely focused more on the characters and their interactions and made a more unique story. Where I think going for Serkis is the more risky of the choices. And Rupert Wyatt is kind of the safe pair of hands in a way. And they've gone for Andy Serkis. Listen, again, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Andy Serkis. Even in really obscure films like a 13 Going on 30, I'm a huge fan of him in that. He's definitely the best part of that film. He's a very talented actor, 100%, but he's not shown a lot from me as a director yet for me to say he can do something unique with Venom 2. Now, don't get me wrong, he definitely could have. He definitely can bring something unique to Venom. I'm interested to see how I think visually this film is going to be very, very fantastic. I think Andy Serkis has got very good vision for visual storytelling. That's one of his strongest suits. Definitely his work as an actor, an emotion capture actor, definitely allows him to kind of get into the mind of the emotion that certain actors will need for characters, and I think that will be one of his strongest aspects. I'm interested to see how him and Tom Hardy are going to work together. I'm interested to see what he's going to do with Michelle Williams, who I didn't think was very good in Venom, but that's being said. I'm interested to see how he's going to be with Carnage and all these things that are going to go on. I'm so excited to see what Serkis can do visually. My only concern is the story aspect. That's the only thing that concerns me with Venom 2. I do feel like the worst aspect of the first Venom was the story. I felt like it was a really cliched story with a cliched villain, with a kind of cliched superhero arc. Everything I could have predicted from the start till the finish, it is exactly how I expected it to be. Very by the numbers. It was a very safe film to make. So hopefully they can get a bit more experimental with Venom 2. I hope they will, because I think it definitely needs it, and there's enough talent there to make something unique out of Venom 2. With Andy Serkis on board, I think definitely, like I said, visually, it has the potential to be a huge visual film to watch. But like I said, the stories is the one thing I'm worried about, which is why I wanted Travis Knight, because I think he does very good character work. And I'd be interested to see how he would have handled the relationship between Venom and Brock, and how he would have expanded on that and developed the romantic relationship a bit more, and talked more about the relationship between Brock and Cletus and how that would work. I think that was the most interesting thing I was looking forward to Venom 2, and I think with Andy being on board, unless he's definitely learned from his errors in his previous films, which I think he probably has done because he's a big talent, then it's going to be I think this film has the potential to be better than the first Venom, but will it be some great film? Probably not. I think it'll be quite average. So yeah, I'm not overly excited about Andy Serkis being the director for Venom, but I'm not against it either. I'm definitely looking forward to see what he's going to do. I'm looking forward when the first trailers come out, and when the first photos come from the film. I'm very, very interested to see what this film is going to be like. I'm sure Venom 2 comes out next year as well, so I'm guessing pre-production is literally on its way now. Now Andy's on board, I'm pretty sure that they're definitely planning this film. Probably they'll start shooting it near probably the end of the year, ready for probably a fall release next year. That's what I'm kind of expecting it to come out in the autumn, maybe October time. That's my prediction. So that'll be very, very interesting to see. But that's just my little thoughts on Andy Serkis being the director of Venom. Not overly excited, but not against... Oh, sorry, just burped. Sorry, it's the water. Yeah, I'm not overly against it, but I'm not really enthusiastic about it either, guys. Let me know what you think about Serkis being the director for Venom 2. Do you think it's an inspired choice, or do you kind of think like I do, and you kind of feel it's a bit of a risk, but it could pay off huge? Who knows? We're going to have to wait and see. Just leave your thoughts in the comments below and we can have a little discussion about that. Now, this is huge news, guys. It was confirmed yesterday by Disney themselves. It's not a rumour. It's not, some scoop from some, from some website trying to print fake news. This is official from Disney. Disney now obviously own Fox, so it's not just all the X-Men, all the Marvel characters that are going back to Disney and with Marvel. Obviously they have all the Fox properties and all the Fox licenses, and some of the biggest Fox franchises are currently being rebooted by Disney. And you might wonder, what franchises are these? What films are you talking about? What's it going to be, like Alien maybe? Something like that? No. Oh dear. Right, okay. I don't even know where to start with this. Okay. Disney, seemingly because they have nothing interesting to do with Disney Plus away from anything Marvel or Star Wars, they are looking into the Fox catalogue, looking at their library and seeing what they can reboot to try and get people to buy their streaming service. And instead of doing a sequel to Home Alone, they are rebooting Home Alone. I have no words to describe how stupid this is. This is so effing stupid. I don't want to swear because I don't like swearing, guys, but this is fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry. Home Alone is one of the most beloved classics of all time. One of the most beloved Christmas films of all time. It plays every year on telly. Both Home Alone and Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. Two of the most beloved Christmas films of all time. Macaulay Culkin, iconic as Kevin McAllister. All the side characters are iconic and memorable. Chris Columbus did a fantastic job as well directing the film. The first two films brought a sense of magic, but a little bit of kind of wonder and a bit of dread in there as well, a little bit of tension. It was the perfect Christmas film. John Williams' score, not even mention that. John Williams' score was fantastic. Home Alone is just the quintessential family Christmas film, along with something say like It's a Wonderful Life. It is 100% a Christmas quintessential classic, one of the most successful comedies of all time, a huge box office success when it first came out, and a beloved classic. So instead of doing a sequel, which I think we'd all like to see, get Macaulay Culkin back, get Pesci back, get Daniel Stern back, get them all back, see how they can do it, maybe do something really interesting with Kevin and maybe Kevin's kids or something like that. Bring Columbus back, bring whoever you want back. But instead they're going to reboot Home Alone. Are you fucking serious? This is stupid and it's desperate and it's dumb. Disney are in such a lost place right now, as far as they're kind of away from Marvel, which I think they've been stellar with, but that's more down to Feige than I'd say someone like a Bob Iger or someone higher up at Disney. That is definitely down to Feige. Same with something like Star Wars, which Kathleen Kennedy has been fantastic with, bringing back such a kind of dead franchise in a way after the disaster of the prequels. It's kind of interesting to see that they're going to reboot Home Alone. This, for me, is such a mistake. It smells of desperation from a studio who are creatively bankrupt. I mean, we've talked a lot about their remakes with their live action animated remakes, things like Lion King, and you know how I felt about Lion King. If you watched any of my podcasts, you'll know exactly how I feel about that. And I said in that, I think Disney are a studio that are strapped for creativity and strapped for ideas, and they don't want to take risks, and they don't want to give people chances, and they don't want to expand their wings and give people the opportunity to create new stories and do something different. And they are so heavily reliant on nostalgia right now and properties that people know and people can identify with because it's safe business. But let me tell you what, Home Alone is not safe business. Home Alone 3 was a huge box office fucking disaster compared to the first two films. I think it made just under kind of like 90 million, which was definitely under expected. Home Alone 4 was a terrible straight to DVD film. Home Alone 5, A Holiday Heist, was something I'll never watch. So we've seen kind of reboots of Home Alone already, and guess what? They're all shit. The beauty of Home Alone was the characters. It was the characters, it was the story, it was the relatability that the actors brought to those characters. You can't just capture lightning in a bottle again like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work unless there's say like a franchise or a property with a lot of history behind it that you can expand on, you can go deeper with, something like comic book characters or action movies, that you can expand on characters and expand on the lore and the world that's already set up. Home Alone is such an isolated story. There's nowhere else you can go. Home Alone is done. It's finished. It's done. Home Alone was done after the first film. Home Alone was done after the first film. You've told the story. You've told the story. A kid gets left home alone. He has to protect his house from burglars. It's a simple premise, but it works because of the charisma from the actors and the style of the director and the care that they put into it. That's what made Home Alone so special. It's not the name Home Alone that people like. It's the characters, it's the actors, it's the performances, it's the music, it's the story, and it's been done already. They say, this is what Disney have said, they aim to remake Home Alone for a new generation. So I guess Kevin McAllister, instead of being a creative, inventive, smart, kid who fights off two very dangerous people and does it with his brain and his ingenuity and his creativity, he's probably just going to use gadgets and, technology instead of using what he's got around him. He'll probably look on his iPad. Is that what we're just going to get now? Kevin McAllister on an iPad? Like, seriously, what do you mean? What they didn't specify what they mean. What do you mean? Remake Home Alone for a new generation. What does that mean? Please expand on it, because I don't have a clue what that means. How can you remake Home Alone for a new generation? It's not like a film that was made in, say, like the 50s and the effects are poor and the acting's kind of over the top and cheesy and the film's really dated. Home Alone still stands up now. It still stands up now. It's a quintessential Christmas film. Everyone knows, everyone has watched, everyone loves Home Alone. It's one of those films. Everyone likes Home Alone. I don't think I know a single person that doesn't like Home Alone. When I have kids one day, it's the first Christmas film I'll show them is Home Alone. And they'll end up liking it. Because you know why? Because it's the characters that are timeless. The characters are timeless. The script is timeless. The music is timeless. That's what makes Home Alone so special. It's not the visual effects or the practical effects that was used in the 1990s. It's not the quality of the technology. It's not the quality of the cameras. It's not shooting on digital to make everything look so artificial. It's not shooting things on a green screen. That's not what Home Alone is. Home Alone is a simple story. It was a simple production. It was a simple film. And the simplicity of it is what made it so special and so iconic. You can't remake that for a new generation. It doesn't work. It's like remaking Rocky. The story, that film, is encapsulated in that time. You can't just remake that. What made something like Rocky so special was the actors, was the passion that was put into that film from everyone involved, from Stallone, from Talia Shire, from Burt Young, to Bill Conti doing the music, to John G. Avildsen directing it, from the cinematographers who invented the Steadicam and all of that. That's what made Rocky so iconic. It's not the technology, it's not the quality of the cameras, it's not the visual effects, it's not the practical effects. It's the timelessness of the story and the characters that make that film interesting and timeless. And that's exactly the way I feel about Home Alone. It falls into that same category. Now, if you wanted to remake something, if you wanted to remake a Christmas film, say like The Grinch, which I think can deserve a live action update, you can do that. There's something there to do. There's a story there to tell. But Home Alone, you can't remake. Now, away from Home Alone, they're also announced that they're going to remake Night at the Museum and Diary of the Wimpy Kid. Now, I've never watched the Diary of the Wimpy Kid films, but I know a lot of people like them, so I'd like to know your opinions on that if you've seen them. Night at the Museum definitely could deserve a remake and an update, 100%. That film has a lot of flaws in there, and I think with new technology, the film can look a lot more visually interesting than it did in 2006. So definitely Night at the Museum, 100%. Can get a remake and get a reimagining for a new generation. That's fine. But Home Alone, though? Really? Like, come on. Come on, Disney. Please, just... Come on. Just stop. Just stop. What you're doing, man. Just sort it out. Like, Jesus. Why does every fucking film nowadays have to be a remake? Why is everything got to be remade? Do something new. Just do something new or do a sequel. Carry on that world. It's like when they wanted to reboot the Goonies. Fuck off. It's as simple as just fuck off. You know what I mean? Some films are just timeless because of other aspects away from just technology. You can't bring a new perspective on Home Alone. Home Alone is such a simple story. It's so centered. The world is so small. You know, that story is such an isolated incident that it doesn't need expanding on. It doesn't need getting more about. It doesn't need that. You know, the second film, even though it was unnecessary, still had the original actors and the original directors. So it still had that feel of the original film. It was basically just the same film again, just in a different environment. So if they was going to do that again for a sequel, but instead it's, you know, Kevin's kids maybe, that would have been interesting. I think that could have produced some good drama and some good tension and, you know, some good character work for Kevin McAllister as well, to see how, you know, he was like that when he was that age, and he can kind of relate to that. It could create some good drama. It'd be a good comedy drama. But who really wants a Home Alone fucking remake? It's stupid, it's desperate, it's pathetic. And I think Disney now, because they just seem to seemingly own everything. You know, they own Pixar, they own Marvel, they own Star Wars, they own Fox, they own everything. They own Indiana Jones, they own everything that everyone seems to like. They like, you know, they've got Alien now, which I'm sure will get a reboot in 5 years. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, story's done. Do something new. Get creative. Get creative, man. Not everything has to be a remake. You know. And I know people will say to me there's loads of original content out there. And there is. But when you go to the cinemas, if you look at the box office for this year alone, I'd say, I think all of the top 10 films of this year, box office wise, they're just all, they're all either remakes, sequels, franchise films, or films based on a pre-existing thing like a book or something like that. All of them are based on something like that. All of them. Why? Why is it like this? I guess I kind of think we are kind of to blame in a way, because we speak with our wallets and we speak with our money and we speak with what we want to go and see, and clearly everyone are going to see these types of films. That's what people want to see, so they'll keep doing it. But you're releasing it on Disney Plus. If anything, this is something that's going to turn people off from getting Disney Plus. I think Night at the Museum's interesting, 100%, but Home Alone, that's just going to turn people off. No one's going to want to see a Home Alone remake. No one. No one. You can ask anybody and everyone will have the same reaction that I have. No one wants to see a Home Alone remake. It's pointless, it's desperate, and it's pathetic. So if I was Bob Iger, if I was the head of Disney, or, you know, if I made the decisions, stay away from Home Alone. Re-release it in cinemas. If that's what you want to do, re-release it in 4K or whatever you want to do. Re-release it in IMAX. You know, that's what they should do. Celebrate the film. Don't diminish it. Celebrate the film. Re-release it next year for its 30th anniversary. Do that. Re-release it in cinemas next year over Christmas. You know, release it over December. You know, play on nostalgia if that's what you want to do. Play on the nostalgia, do that. Don't just, don't just remake it. It's just desperate. It's desperate and it's pathetic. And it's low. From a studio who's made its name on creativity, telling stories based off, old works, but putting their own spin on it and doing something original with old things like fairy tales and things like that. From a studio who's been so well known for doing things like this, to then just, what's popular? What do people like? Oh, what we got? We've just bought Fox. What's on Fox? Oh, there's Home Alone. Let's remake that. Come on. Silly, it's pathetic, and they need to sort it out really bad, because people will eventually just get fed up, like I am getting fed up of Disney right now. Please let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments section below. What do you think of the Home Alone reboot that's coming? Also, what do you think about Night at the Museum being rebooted and Diary of the Wimpy Kid being rebooted, all for Disney Plus? What's your opinion on that? What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to remake Home Alone? Do you think that there is new things they can do with it, or do you think it's, pointless like I do? I'm very interested to know your opinions on that. Right, the fourth and final topic today, guys, is something that's a lot less calm and a lot less ranty than Home Alone, the Home Alone reboot rant was. But this is something that I'm very excited to speak about, and that is my most anticipated films for the remainder of this year, the remainder of 2019. Like I've said earlier in the podcast, I feel like 2019 has been quite a disappointing year for film, with exceptions being say like John Wick 3, Toy Story 4 was good, Endgame. But the majority of the films that have come out this year, especially the big films, I have been extremely disappointed in. I think Spider-Man Far From Home, I know it's crazy to say, but I was kind of disappointed in it. I don't think it's as good as everyone else's. I'd kind of give it like a 7. Like some people are saying it's the best Spider-Man film of all time, which to me is just crazy talk. Captain Marvel, I was hugely disappointed in. God, what else? This year's just been so forgettable that I can't even remember what's come out this year. It's been that bad. Lion King, got no other words to describe the Lion King. So yeah, this year has been kind of flat for me. I've not looked forward to this year at all. I think this year's been really bad for especially event cinema. This year has definitely disappointed me. There's been some good films that have come out, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think Endgame was great. Definitely my favourite film of the year. I've not seen Shazam, but I've heard good things about it. So I'll definitely get around to seeing that at some point. And then obviously there's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that comes out next week over here, so I'm excited to see that. But then you look at films like Dumbo, which again I've not seen, but I've heard some really bad things about it. So just generally speaking, that this year has been quite disappointing. Aladdin, people seem to really like, but critics are completely against Aladdin. So again, this year has been very disappointing. However, the year's not over yet, and there is a lot to be excited about for the remainder of this year. From this point onwards, up until the end of this year, until the end of December, these are the films that I am most looking forward to. I've got a couple of films on here, so I'll just give a little brief thoughts on my opinions of what I'm looking forward to about these films. The first one being It Chapter 2, which comes out I think early September. This is one of my most anticipated films of the whole year. From at the start of the year, It Chapter 2 is definitely up there. I love the original. I've spoke about It Chapter 2 before. I spoke about the trailer. It Chapter 2 has the potential to be probably the best horror film of the year. one of the best films of the year. 100% has the potential to be that. I think the talent behind it, is incredible. The story is engaging. It looks like it's going to be engaging and scary and nail-biting, and I can't wait to see it. I just love the first film so much. Its style, its suspense, its payoffs to certain characters and to certain moments I thought was perfect. I thought It Chapter 2 was the perfect modern horror film. It blended that kind of the jump scares which people expect, but it didn't overly rely on them. It relied on the tension and the build-up and clever camera work and good editing and good sound editing and good cinematography and great acting and good character work, good screenplay, good directing. For me, it was the perfect modern horror film, and I can't wait to see the second part to it, which comes out in early September. The next film that I'm really looking forward to is Rambo Last Blood. Huge fan of the Rambo series. First Blood's one of my favourite kind of films of all time. People would call it an action film. I'd more say it was like a drama. Definitely, it goes more into the PTSD aspects of Rambo. Follows the book a lot closer, and then with the sequels, it just kind of became a Sylvester Stallone action franchise, which I'm fine with. It's very 80s. It's very of its time, but it is entertaining to watch. 100%. Definitely, I think Stallone's most beloved franchise away from Rocky, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. It looks like, from the trailers, that they're going kind of going back to the drawing board as far as how they approach this series. It kind of feels like they're doing more of a First Blood tone than what they did, say, with the last Rambo film, which was all action and barely any story and barely any character work. I kind of feel that Rambo Last Blood will go more into the drama and more into the psychological aspects of the character of Rambo, and give us a great payoff to that series. I'm very excited to see what they do with it. The trailers look incredible. Kind of feels like a mix of, like Unforgiven and Logan, and it kind of has that tone in there. It feels like a western, which I can't wait for. I love westerns, and they seem to be making a bit of a comeback nowadays. Films like Bone Tomahawk and what Tarantino did with The Hateful Eight, and also with Logan. It seems like westerns are kind of making a bit of a comeback, so that's great to see. The next film on this list is one of the most anticipated films of the year, and that is Joker. Now, spoke a little bit about Joker in the last podcast. I said it definitely has the potential to get a Best Picture nomination. It's been screened at Venice, a festival that's mostly known for kind of Oscar contenders. This film could end up being one of the best films of the year. It could also be one of the most disappointing films of the year, so I'm trying to keep my expectations kind of lower and realistic to what I think it could end up being. But 100%, I can't wait to see this film. It's one of my most anticipated. I love the character, I love the world, I love the trailers. It kind of feels like they're going for a bit of a psycho Taxi Driver kind of feel, which I'm really excited for. It definitely feels more of a psychological thriller than a comic book film. It's standalone as well, which means that they won't have to kind of worry about continuity with any other series. So it's definitely its own thing, and I think that's for the best. I can't wait to see what Todd Phillips does with it and what Joaquin Phoenix does when the film comes out. I think it comes out in October, so definitely keep your eye out for Joker. The next film on this list is Gemini Man. Gemini Man is a film that probably a lot of people haven't heard of. It's not as overly promoted as some of the other films on this list, but definitely a film that you have to keep your eye out on. Ang Lee, one of the best directors of his generation. Yeah, we won't talk about Hulk, which I actually think is kind of underrated, but talking on the whole, people don't really seem to click with that film. But he's definitely one of the best directors of his time. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Brokeback Mountain, Life of Pi. Ang Lee's a visionary and a clever filmmaker. He's very good with action. He's very good with characters. So I feel like Gemini Man could do something very unique. Will Smith looks like he's doing his best work in years. I'm excited to see what Will Smith can bring to this film. The effects look very impressive, how they've kind of de-aged Will Smith. So the effects look very impressive. The story looks interesting and has a bit of kind of mystery and espionage and a bit of a spy thriller aspect to it. So I'm very looking forward to see Gemini Man. It looks like it could be one of the best action films of the year. I'm very interested to see what angle he can do with that. The next film on this list is a film that I'm anticipating. But at the same time, I'm kind of nervous for, and that is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. Maleficent, I think, is the first Maleficent was one of the most daring and I'd almost say ambitious of the Disney live-action remakes. They took the story of Sleeping Beauty and spun it and twisted it and did something completely different with it, which I was a huge fan of. The execution wasn't the best, but the idea definitely was there. And Angelina Jolie was great as Maleficent as well, so I'm interested to see her back. Michelle Pfeiffer's in this film as well, so I'm interested to see how those two are going to play off each other. I love Disney as a brand, except from when they remake everything. I like the classic Disney. When I say the Disney brand, I mean the Disney kind of classic, like the classic 2D animation. And I feel like Maleficent was one of the better of the live-action remakes. So I'm interested to see how Mistress of Evil can do. Will it top the first one? Will it not top the first one? It's interesting to see, but definitely the film from the trailers and everything I've heard about it looks like it's going to be quite an experience. So I'm very interested to see that. Next film on this list is Zombieland Double Tap. Zombieland, one of my favourite comedies over the past 10 years. I think it's a complete gem of a film. Brilliant. Jesse Eisenberg, an actor that I don't really rate very highly. This is one of his best performances of his entire career, 100%. His chemistry with Emma Stone and Woody Harrelson and Abigail Breslin, who are all returning for this film, as is Ruben Fleischer, the director, who we talked about earlier with Venom, but he's coming back as well to direct. So I'm very interested to see this film, what cameos might appear in it, the interactions between the characters, the comedy. I'm very interested to see Zombieland Double Tap. I kind of feel like it could be a very, very good comedy, and I'm very interested to see it. The next film on this list is a film that I wanted to talk about in the podcast that I was going to live stream the other day, but obviously due to the technical issues I couldn't talk about it, and that film is The Lighthouse. Now, if you've not seen the trailer for this film, definitely go out and see this trailer. It doesn't give anything away, so if you're aware, like if you're a bit cautious of spoilers, then don't worry. This trailer barely gives anything away. But it stars Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe as these two people who live at this lighthouse, and something seems to happen, which is going to cause a lot of problems for those characters. The trailer literally gives nothing away, and I don't want to research too heavily into this film, so I don't want anything spoiled. The director is the same person who directed The Witch, Robert Eggers, who definitely has the potential to become one of the best directors around right now if he continues what he did with The Witch, if his form carries over to this film. The film is shot in, I think, the 4:3 aspect ratio, definitely kind of playing into that classic film style. I'm very interested to see. It looks like it's shot on film as well. It doesn't look like digital, so it definitely feels like something that you would have seen in the 60s, which is one of my favourite eras of film. So I can't wait to see The Lighthouse. I definitely go out and see this trailer and see the film when it comes out. I think it maybe comes out in like October, I think. But definitely go out and see The Lighthouse. It looks fantastic. This could be an Oscar contender if it plays its cards right. It depends how far it goes. If it goes a bit too far, then maybe it might be out of contention. But I feel like Robert Pattinson is completely killing it right now. I can't wait for him to be Batman. I'm very interested to see what he can bring to that role. People still see him as the Twilight guy, but you're completely missing out on one of the best actors around right now if you don't want to see any of his films. If you just see him as the Twilight guy, you're completely missing out. So definitely catch up with Pattinson's work if you're interested to see what he's going to be like as Batman. And also tried to check out the Lighthouse trailer as well, because instantly it became one of my most anticipated films of the year. I can't wait to see it. Right, next film on this list is another horror thriller type of film, and that film is called Doctor Sleep. Now, for anyone that knows me, they will know the best film of all time, in my opinion, is The Shining. It's a flawless piece of cinema. The characters, the acting, the directing, the cinematography, the production design, the music. There is literally nothing I hate about that film. The only thing that I have a problem with is the character. I think Jack Nicholson, I fucking love Jack Nicholson. He's one of my favourite actors of all time. But I feel like his performance was a bit too obvious. I think it should have been played with a little bit more subtlety. That being said, it completely works for this film. You can definitely feel the tension every time he's on screen. It's for me, it's the best film ever made. So Doctor Sleep has huge expectations to live up to. It has a huge legacy to try and live up to. It's kind of damned on release because there's no way it can top The Shining. But then again, I'm not expecting it to be better than The Shining. I want it to be an extension of what was there in the original film, extend on what was on the book. I can't believe we're actually getting this film. I never thought I would have saw The Shining back. The Shining, that world back. I would never thought I would have seen it on screen in the cinema. But we're actually going to see it. That's crazy to me. I can't wait for that. It's just giving me a headache thinking about it. Oh God, I'm so excited for Doctor Sleep. And also one of my favourite directors, Mike Flanagan, is helming this film. Mike Flanagan is a complete horror genius. One of the best horror directors around right now. He directed Oculus, which I think is one of the most underrated horrors of the past 5 years, 10 years. It's fantastic. He directed Ouija Origin of Evil, which took a franchise that was dead, literally completely dead, and breathed new life into it and made a kind of retro horror film in the vein of something like The Exorcist. You could see his love of classic horror and classic cinema there. So obviously The Exorcist and The Shining are only, say, like 7 years apart. So if he's a fan of that time frame of cinema, that era of cinema, then I can't wait to see what he brings to this film. I'm very excited to see. Ewan McGregor looks fantastic in it as well, like he is in everything really. I don't think I've ever seen him give a bad performance. So for him to play a grown-up Danny Torrance is going to be completely interesting. I'm completely sold on this film. Take my money now. I will be there opening day and definitely expect a review on Doctor Sleep when that comes out. The next film I want to talk about is Terminator Dark Fate. Terminator, one of my favourite franchises of all time. Definitely fell on hard times over the past few years. Terminator Genesis is one of the worst films I've seen in cinemas over the past 5 years. Absolutely terrible, completely missed the point of what Terminator is. The acting was terrible, the comedy was bad, the effects was awful, the characters were terrible, the writing was bad, the directing was bad. Everything was completely mishandled. Terminator Salvation was a huge bore fest. I kind of have a soft spot for Rise of the Machines, but it doesn't hold a candle to the original two. It feels like a cheap imitation of the second one, really. But Terminator Dark Fate, we're getting James Cameron's back as a producer. How involved he's been with this film, I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see how involved he has been with this film. I can't wait to see what influences he's had. Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool, is directing this film, so I'm interested to see how his style can transfer over to the Terminator films. We're getting Linda Hamilton back as Sarah Connor. Just take my money for that alone. I mean, it's literally Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley. Those are the two best female characters in the history of film, in genre cinema anyway. So to get her back, I'm sold. Arnold's coming back as well. Seems like he's playing like a different version of what we know from a Terminator. So that'll be interesting to see. I can't wait for Terminator Dark Fate. It looks like it's going to be a big epic film. Hopefully it'll keep the kind of... even though obviously Terminator 2 was a big film, it was very focused on those characters. Also, I mean, just take my money for this alone. I can't believe this is actually happening. Edward Furlong is back as John Connor. I've got no words for that. When I found that out, I nearly passed out. Like, genuinely, I was screaming. I was that excited that he was coming back. I couldn't believe it, and I still can't believe it now. So Edward Furlong's coming back as John Connor. Linda Hamilton's back as Sarah Connor. You've got all these new actors. Mackenzie Davies looks fantastic in here. This film looks like it's going to be epic, dark, twisted, enjoyable, weird. This looks like it's going to be the Terminator film we've been waiting for. This is the Terminator film I've been waiting my entire life to see in cinemas. Fingers crossed it stays. Fingers crossed this is what I hope it is. Because I can't bear another bad Terminator film. I can't deal with another bad and disappointing Terminator film. So fingers crossed it's there. I'm always hopeful when it comes to things like Terminator and Alien. You know, that these films can still do something and still have a place in modern cinema and can do something unique. So fingers crossed that can happen. The next film is Charlie's Angels. Even though I'm not a fan of McG, I think that his first Charlie's Angels film, this might be really unpopular, but I think it's a pretty great action comedy. I think it is actually really great. I think it's pretty good. I think it's really, really good, actually. I think it is a great film. The action is brilliant. Definitely, it feels like an early 2000s film. Definitely has that Matrix style fighting with the quick kind of kung fu karate, bullet time. It has all that in there, but it has the comedy in there. The second one was god awful. Full Throttle was terrible. So I'm interested to see how this reboot goes. It is connected to the original series and the McG films. It is connected to that. So will we see Cameron Diaz and Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu? We will see them back. Maybe Bill Murray. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I'm interested to see what they do with that. But yeah, this film being directed by Elizabeth Banks, who, even though I don't think is a great director, I think she can make great films. It just depends on the material she's given. Kristen Stewart doesn't even look like Kristen Stewart. When I first saw the trailer, I'm not going to lie, I thought it was the one from Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters remake. God, what's her name? From Saturday Night Live. McSomething. Shit. Why have I just gone blank? Damn it, I can't remember what her name. Damn, I'm going to have to research these because it's going to bug me. That's really annoying that I can't remember her name. Her name is on like the tip of my tongue and I can't remember for the life of me what her name is. I'm going to have to research this, guys, because it's going to bug the living shit out of me. Oh, please. It's going to really bug me. It was the wacky one from the Ghostbusters remake. And like I said, I can't for the life of me remember. I can't remember her name. Shit. That's really annoying. And my phone's playing up, so I can't. For God's sake. Oh, it's going to bug me. Oh, that's so annoying. Oh my God, why am I blanking like this? Oh, this is so frustrating. Oh, come on. Why is my phone so bad? Come on. I just want to find out her name. I just feel really disrespectful if I don't know her name. And that it's McSomething, or her last name's McSomething. Something McKinnon, maybe. It's on the tip of my tongue, and fuck, I can't remember, and it's bugging me really bad. Right. Come on. Please work for me, please. I was like, Melissa McCarthy was in that film. Kate McKinnon. There we go. Kate McKinnon. I knew it was on the edge of my tongue. I said McKinnon something, but I couldn't remember her name. I thought it was Kate McKinnon in the Charlie's Angels, in the trailer, and then it's Kirsten Stewart, and I was like, oh shit, that's Kirsten Stewart. Like, I didn't even recognise. She actually looked quite funny and has like a bit of charisma, and again, I think she's been painted by that Twilight brush so badly that it's very hard to kind of for people to see her in anything else. But she is a talented actress, even from a young age. If you've ever seen Panic Room with Jodie Foster, which was a film David Fincher directed, she was fantastic in that. And she's been great in some indie films over the past few years as well. That one she did with Jesse Eisenberg a couple of years ago, that was a great film. So she's a very, very good actress. They've also got a couple of other people, and I think Patrick Stewart's in this film as well. So Charlie's Angels is definitely a film I'm excited to see. I can't wait to see what they do with it. And we'll have to wait and see if it's a flop or not. The next film on this list is Frozen 2. I like the first Frozen. I think it's one of the most overrated films of all time, but I still like it. Frozen 2 looks amazing. It looks like it's going away from the cliches and the predictable characters, and the tone seems a bit darker. So I'm excited to see Frozen 2. I'm not kind of sure what they're going to do with it yet, but that's why I'm looking forward to it, because it looks unpredictable and it looks a bit weird and a bit strange. So definitely Frozen 2. It's going to be a huge film, guaranteed. I mean, the first Frozen's still talked about massively now, and it's like 6 years later. So this film will definitely be a huge success for Disney when it comes out in, I think, November. And then we've got Knives Out, which is a Rian Johnson film. Rian Johnson obviously has been kind of tarnished with the Star Wars The Last Jedi controversy, but don't get it twisted, Rian Johnson is a fantastic filmmaker, a great director. The Knives Out trailer was fantastic. It was a trailer I watched a couple of times and definitely found enjoyment in it. It's got an all-star cast. Film looks crazy and weird. I can't wait to see. Chris Evans looks unrecognisable in it. He looks weird in it, but definitely Chris Evans looks fantastic, and he's one of my favourite actors, so I'm definitely interested to see what happens with this film and if it's any good or not, which I'm sure it will be, because Ryan does make good films. The next film on the list is Jumanji: The Next Level. When the first Jumanji with The Rock and Kevin Hart and all those came in, what was it, Welcome to the Jungle? When that first Jumanji, when it was announced, I was so against it. The premise seemed stupid and ridiculous. It felt like they completely didn't understand Jumanji at all. They just seemed like they didn't care, and they just wanted to do, it's like another vehicle for The Rock and Kevin Hart, really. And it was so much more than that. It was actually really funny and reimagined Jumanji in a new way, and tonally it was very different, but it kept the heart of the film, of the original film. You know, it was still connected, and it still had that kind of tension there, which I wasn't expecting, because I thought Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle looked absolutely stupid, and it was actually really enjoyable. It was an enjoyable little film. Obviously it was a massive success, so people definitely want more. And Jumanji: The Next Level looks like it's going to just give us more of what we loved from the first film, except from a couple of little spins with Danny Glover is in this film, and Danny DeVito are in this film. And I can't believe they're saying this, but they're being played in the game by Kevin Hart and The Rock. Like, Kevin Hart is playing Danny Glover, and it's completely bizarre because he's actually doing a quite decent Danny Glover impression, and then The Rock's doing like a Danny DeVito impression, and it's just weird. It's so odd and unique and weird that I'm really looking forward to it, and it could be one of the most fun films of the year. I like The Rock and Kevin Hart together. They're comedy gold. Great chemistry. Jack Black's back. Karen Gillan's back. So this film definitely has the potential to be one of the most enjoyable films of the year. Hopefully it isn't a disappointment like a lot of other films from 2019 have been. And then the final film on this list is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. It's Star Wars. End of conversation. Obviously, I'm going to look forward to this. I'm interested to see how they're going to pick up after The Last Jedi. The trailers kind of hint towards certain characters coming back that, when I think about it, make no sense. But I'm interested to see how they do it. J.J. Abrams is back, so I think he's definitely going to make a very solid film. I don't think the film's going to be incredible. I think it's just going to be a very solid Star Wars film that people will 100% enjoy. No one really does crowd pleasing cinema like J.J. Abrams. He literally is Steven Spielberg reincarnated for a new generation. So he's one of the best at making family cinema right now. Family event films. He's one of the best around right now. So I'm looking forward to this film. I like the Star Wars films. I'm invested in the series. It doesn't hold such a strong place to me as far as nostalgia, but I'm 100% looking forward to this film. I think the trailers look very interesting. I'm very interested to see where they go with the story more than anything. And will they finally make Rey interesting? That's what I can't wait to see, because so far I think her character has been really uninteresting, and I think Daisy really hasn't really played her very well. So I'm interested to see what they do with these characters, and what they're going to do. Who's the rise of Skywalker? What Skywalker is rising? Is it finally going to be revealed that Rey is actually Luke's daughter? Is it going to be revealed that maybe Anakin survived? Or it's going to be so interesting to see, guys. I can't wait for this. But definitely, there's going to be a lot of moments in this film where you're going to be shocked. I think that's one reason why I'm looking forward to it so much. But that does conclude the show for today, guys. It's been an absolute blast, as it always is, talking films with you amazing people from my kitchen, in my house. It's fantastic. I do want to definitely live stream. I just need to sort out the technical issues with YouTube. I don't really know what's going on there. Something to do with my camera, but definitely I do want to live stream. If I can't on YouTube, then I'll do through some other source. Because I do want to get sort of a live interaction with you guys as I'm doing my show. But that'll come in time. 100% that'll come in time. But for now, guys, that will be it for the podcast, I think, for this week. Then again, I might do one on Sunday, actually. I'm going to see the Playmobil movie tomorrow. I have no idea what Playmobil is, but the trailers kind of reminded me a bit of the Lego movie in its tone. And it kind of looks a bit like the Lego movie. Seems like a bit of a wacky comedy. Very kind of socially aware of what it is. It looks like it's going to be a very fun, enjoyable film. So I can't wait to see that. Hopefully it's good. Fingers crossed. We can hope. And I'll give you maybe a little review on that on Sunday on the show. Or I could just do a little separate video if you want. We'll have to just wait and see what happens with that. But until now, guys, that is the podcast done for today. It's been, like I said, a blast talking about these topics. If you want to get any questions in for the end of the show, I'm still waiting for people to send me questions. If you want any questions answered on the show, then please email me at ymbmovietalk@gmail.com and I can answer your questions on the show. Also, I've set up a Patreon page, so if you want to go and donate to my Patreon page, that would be absolutely incredible. If you like the podcast and you want it to keep going and you want to hear more from me, then definitely that would be much appreciated if you could donate to my Patreon. And you can get some exclusives as well. You can get a shout out on the podcast. Your questions, any Patreon questions, will go to top priority. on the podcast. Those will be the main ones that I'll answer. So we'll have to get those questions in, guys, and we'll have to go on that Patreon. But yeah, I'm not trying to beg for anything. I'm not trying to force you to do anything like that. It'd just be cool. But obviously, I'm not being unrealistic. I'm literally 3 episodes into my podcast, so I just thought I'd set it up. If anyone wants to donate, that'd be fantastic, and it'd be much appreciated. I can pay for advertising for the show. I can get better equipment, so the audio's better and things like that. So that's the main goal of why I wanted to set up a Patreon page. But yeah, guys, like I said, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Simon Mansell. You've been listening to YMB Movie Talk, the best podcast around for movies, giving you an insight into what everything means in the world of film, keeping you up to date for film news and the films out in cinemas, what you should watch, what you shouldn't go and watch, and everything in between. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. My name's been Simon Mansell, and I will see you guys maybe next week. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But see you later, guys. Take care. Ta-ra.